Hey guys, Analogman here for another basically tier list, and as of recording, it's already been about 2 weeks so far since the pre-release technically of BT16, and we have had our first regional, and surprisingly, I'm not surprised with how it worked out. Um, the region I'm specifically talking about is the Latam one, and it's specifically like originally I was expecting Magna X to really, have more of a presence, but I think there was only like two to three tops of it. And I think the guy who won it, I used, I think, either Numamon or Mirage. So surprisingly, the big boss monster of this format that people were scared of isn't technically the boss monster. It's still the same old boss again. And that would honestly be Mirage and surprisingly Numamon. Those two are probably the strongest decks in the format at the moment because they just have so many ways to go off faster than you. Well, Mirage in the case is just a game of solitaire. They just basically chill there and then come out of raising and just destroy you basically. Um, I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like the format I was expecting was completely different from what I saw in the OCG, where it was just like pure just Magna X Imperial. Like the Sophie deck, the Shakuamon deck, which barely saw any play honestly. A lot of Numamon, a lot of Yellow Vaccine. There wasn't even that many Yellow Vaccine honestly, which is kind of weird. But yeah, no, this list is just basically based on what I've seen so far. Um, it's kind of weird because, as I said, I was expecting something different, but it feels like it's kind of the same. It's like, basically the same old as usual. Some new decks come in, do some damage, and then the old ones kind of come back and just kind of basically do the same thing again. But yeah, let's actually get into the tier list so we can see which ones are doing so hot or not, basically. So first off, we have Mirage. Mirage is tier one. Like this deck is just basically no fun to play against, especially now that they've teched in the new or the old Mach Galgamon that specifically says if your opponent has 8 or more cards. They basically can't switch your attack target. So basically, your Tamer or your Digimon can't switch Mirage's attack, basically. So Magna X being this gigantic blocker or Tyrant being this giant dude basically can't do anything against Mirage, which really sucks. Even though like Tyrant is fully immune to Mirage's bounces, it can't stop it from swinging the security unless it hits a Shine of B, then it's done. But yeah, no, Mirage is still like literally top of tier one because no deck, like almost, it has literally a good matchup against almost every single deck because it doesn't really have to interact with them until it's about to kill them, basically. So this deck is still like it's still just super strong, and I'm honestly surprised it's still not hit. But yeah, no, it's in tier one no matter what. Rapidmon, honestly, like looking at the results from Japan and Asia in general, or OCG, I don't know, I refer to them as all three, honestly. Um, this saw a lot of play and a lot of tops, but I think it kind of suffered from the old syndrome of, oh, it's a new toy, let's play with it, basically. I think that's probably why the deck just got so many tops because just so many people were playing it. But in all fairness, I played against multiple versions of this deck. Even at Fanime, I played against two different ones, and the deck just feels way too fair. Like it's really strong, but like it just doesn't have a way to like oppress the opponent. Like that's the thing. It's like with all the tier one decks, they have a way to just not like let your opponent have fun basically. And that's the thing is that to basically win, you have to have that edge of like oppression against like your opponent, and Rapid does not have that at all. It's just a really good deck that just it's just there. That's the best way to honestly sum it up. So I'm gonna put it in tier 1.5 because it's so good, but at the same time, it's still lacking that little extra power to make it like really good. Then we have Yellow Vaccine, which is basically running like Magna X and like Rapid Mon X. With see that's the thing. I went with this build because it's honestly stronger than the Rapid. So I would honestly put in tier 1 because it has access to both Magna and Rapid together, which is really insane. And it has free evolutions. It has ways to heal. It has ways to stack its security. It has really good tamers. It has like everything going for it. So it's honestly just in tier 1 no matter what. Um, I know that it hasn't seen that many tops, but I feel like later on, once people kind of understand this deck a bit more, it'll start doing better. Then Imperial, obviously, it has to be in tier 1. This deck, I've been discussing it with a lot of people on basically the Hatchery Discord. Shout out to Mad Raven and some other, and Tiger Dragon Zorna, like everybody there that I talk to like consistently every day. We've been discussing this, and Imperial is just insane. Like, if you ever encounter a player, they'll be like, "Oh, I still need one more. Like, I'm still missing pieces, bro." And then he just has Davis and Ken, and then he just plays a free searcher, gets his piece immediately. Jogresses suspends your whole board. Bottom decks your whole board. After that, it's like this deck goes from 0 to 60 super hard. So yeah, no, it's in tier 1. It's really strong. Sylphie, it's a really good deck, but I don't know. It's just it's a really good deck, but like it's I don't know. Like I would honestly put it in tier 2. Like it's a really solid deck, or maybe 1.5. Like it has the potential, but it just there's just something to it that just kind of hurts it. Like it has good matchups against some of these decks. Not Mirage, not Mirage. Maybe Imperial, Yellow Vaccine. If Yellow Vaccine draws dead, this thing will decimate it. But if not, it's a decent deck. Magna X, like armor, yeah, it's going in tier 1. I'm honestly not sure if it's better than Imperial or not, but I feel like depending on the player, I feel like sometimes the Imperial player is better and sometimes the Magna player is better. So I'm honestly not sure. I think these just go together. Honestly, they're like one side of the coin. This is like heads and this is tails. Basically, it's basically the same kind of thing. Like both decks are just super fast. They go off good. Like especially now with Magna X being like, oh, I'm just gonna make my guy super big. He's immune. He blocks, and then if you swing to my security, he untaps and blocks again. It's just so strong. So both of these are just like right there next to each other. Tyrant also in tier 1. I was not expecting this deck to be that good. Honestly, I thought it would just like, oh, cool, an Insectoid deck. But after seeing basically my entire locals switch over to this deck, almost like including me, there are 3 other people that play this deck. And it's insane how strong it is. And not only that is that it has a way to swarm the board just like Nume, but in a different way compared to with green, it's all about swarming and boosting in this case, where you just make like a 20,000 stack Tyrant, and it's really hard for them to get rid of it sometimes, unless you're playing against Nume. If Nume gets lucky and they get their thing going faster than you, you basically lose. But if you manage to basically get rid of their board, they're basically screwed. So it's like both of them are probably at the same level, but at the same time, like, I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit better than Yellow Vaccine at the moment because Yellow Vaccine, it's a very tempo and like very specific deck. Like Vaccine requires you to actually big brain like a lot. Like if you mess up one move, you basically lose. Compared to Tyrant, where you have a little bit more leeway because it kind of functions at both a stack OTK kind, well, not even OTK, it's a stack control deck. You basically build up your stack in raising, play some searchers, and then you come out with this big unaffected dude that can only be affected by options. But even then, a lot of people are now teching in Shivamon to basically negate the option, so they basically have protection from both, which is pretty crazy. So I feel like this deck is really strong. It's like it's like right there below like these two, but at the same time, sometimes this can actually beat both Magna and Imperial sometimes, especially because this deck also runs Grand Kawaga Ace, which can kill Tamers, which can hinder both of these. So honestly, my hot take is that Tyrant is probably able to counter both of these at some point, especially if you get that good hand going and you play your Grand Kawaga to kill their Davis and Ken. They basically can't do much after that, and then you can keep playing Grand Kawaga aces and keep killing their Davis and Ken so they don't basically get advantage, which is really strong. So I feel like it's Maybe it's like in the middle. It's like the it's like the Malcolm in the middle of the group basically. It's there doing its thing while these two are duking it out basically. So yeah, I'm gonna just put it there in the middle. Like they're all three of these are just really strong decks, but they're all countered by Mirage sadly. Then we have Red Hybrid. Red Hybrid's just there. It still exists in tier one. It's just a gas deck. It just goes. It destroys you. If you get unlucky, you lose. If and sometimes you can win against it, especially if you're using blockers and such. Then we have Nume. Nume, honestly, I will put it above. Both Mirage and Nume counter basically all of these decks in some capacity, which is insane. Like, like you wouldn't expect Platinum to just go off, but at the same time, it's like everything in the deck, the DP reduction, the de-digivolving, the ways to get to negate stuff like with Venusmon or doing more minus DP and healing and all that stuff with Ruin mode, it's really strong. And then with the new Valkyrie Ace, this deck goes even harder than before, and it's really crazy. And now it can also now finally run the Edamon, the dual color one from BT15, because you can do that and force them to attack and then go into Valkyrie Ace and basically kill their guy in the process, which is really strong. Yeah, so Numamon is going to be above these guys because it's too strong. It counters Magna, it counters Tire, it counters Imperial a lot sometimes, so I'm going to put it up there. Then we have Royal Knights. Royal Knights is still a decent deck, but without the new Royal Knight Aces from EX6 and BT17, it's kind of there, and I feel like it kind of struggles against these other decks because there's so many ways to remove their Royal Knights now. Like, Tyrant can bottom deck their Royal Knight. Magna X can block and swing faster before it can even set up. Like, I've been able to honestly go for OTK by, like, turn 4 with Magna X. Numamon can just set up a gigantic board and just block everything. Mirage just doesn't care. It sets up and it goes off. Yeah, so yeah, Royal Knight kind of not having a great day. Then there's War Greymon. War Greymon, honestly, I feel it's still really strong, so I'm going to put it like right next to Red Hybrid because it basically does this exact same thing, but it has like a lot more protection, which is really cool. Heavy Leo. Heavy Leo actually kind of struggles a bit now that Magna X is in the format. Same with Imperial and Tyrant. The fact that they can just bottom deck your guy really hurts you because you need to get those on deletion effects. Like, I love this deck to death, but it kind of suffers from, not being able to die basically because that's the whole gimmick of the deck is to just have your guy die and come back with Fortitude. I feel it's better than Selfie, honestly, and Royal Knights because if you let a heavy Leo player go off, they go off, and they just start removing your board, and it's not really a great time. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it in like the 1.5 tier. Security Control has a good matchup against almost everything in tier 1, so I'm going to put it in like the top of tier 1.5, because no matter how much people say that this deck is gone, it's still there, and it can still do a lot of things. It can take down Mirage, it can take down Numamon, it can take down Magna X, it can honestly take down anything that doesn't have protection like War Greymon. Security Control basically takes advantage of that and removes it no matter what. Especially because they also run Quantumon now just to, do alternative removal, so it's still very strong. Shine is still a very strong deck, but a lot of these decks kind of overpower it and are a bit faster now. So it's there with like War Greymon or basically the Greymons just kind of chilling there in tier 1. Then we have Metal Edamon, or just Edamon in general. This deck has a lot of potential. I honestly really like it, and it's kind of like Heavy Leo, where they both just kind of strive to make your life not great. So I'm going to put them together because they both kind of basically do the same thing. They're basically hurting your opponent while dying at the same time, which is really cool. Then we got Gaiomon. Gaiomon's like, man, like, I really wish he could get more support because I love Gaiomon as a Digimon, but he's just, he needs his upgrade form, his Ito mode, his, like, speed form. If he does, maybe this deck might be good, but for now, it's kind of like a tier 2, like, kind of roguish deck. I feel like it's a rogue deck, but it's a really fun rogue deck. Then we have Jumbo Gamamon. I'm honestly not sure, like, I kind of still just think this was just a gimmick deck, but it's a really solid deck. It's a very roguish deck. Every time when I see it, it's like once in a blue moon. Then we have Blue Flare. Blue Flare is pretty decent no matter what because of save. So we're going to put it in like tier 1.5. We'll put it like with Security Control because both of these are like really, really good. Then we have Dark Knightmon, obviously a rogue deck. This deck hasn't really done much, sadly, even though I also love him. He's amazing. Then we have Dark Masters. I'm going to put this in like tier 1.5, maybe like right next to Blue Flare, because this deck is hilarious, because all it does is just set up level 6s in breeding, kind of like Devas, but instead of level 5s, it's level 6s. And then you spend your turn basically just Digivolving into an Omnimon's Wart just to play out level 5s that you can Blast Evolve into, which is really crazy. I love that idea. Then we have Fenrir. Fenrir's good, but like a lot of these newer decks just kind of hurt it really bad, which I feel, yeah, it's good. I'm gonna put it with like Blue Flare here. It's really good. Uh, Gamamon, I'm gonna give it a solid tier 2. It is a very good deck, but it's countered by a lot of the tier 1.5 decks, sadly. Then we have Garuru. Garuru is a roguish deck, sadly. Even though, like, you guys know I love Garurumon, it sucks. Grace Nova, I'm gonna put it in like tier 1.5 alongside like Fenrir because it's a really good deck. It's just when you're missing that piece, you're missing that piece, and it's not like Imperial where they can just play a free searcher. So they kind of have to struggle a bit sometimes. Grand Kawaga with the new Tyrant support. I'm gonna give it like a tier. Maybe I'll give it like Rogue because like it's good, but it's not as good as like Pure Tyrant. Like Pure Tyrant's way stronger because it's like a control deck, while here it's just like your old OTK deck. It's kind of like a leftover from BT9, sadly, which kind of sucks. But yeah, it's still a bit too roguish, sadly. Then we have Bloomlord. Bloomlord, it just keeps getting support, but it just never does anything. So I'll put it like right here next to Gamamon. They're both really good decks, but just everything in tier 1.5 and above just kind of counters it somehow sometimes. It's really bad. Then we have Alter S. I'll put it in tier 2. It's a decent deck. It is stronger than these guys. Actually, yeah, no, it's actually pretty good. Like, it actually can survive getting hit by Quantumon, so yeah, I'll put it above that. Then we have Hunters. Hunters is like tier 1.5. Like, I'll put it like here with Grace Nova and like Blue Flare and these guys because this deck is still really solid to this day and it still does its thing pretty well. So I'm gonna give it that spot at least. This is for fun. This Galactamon, no, it is straight up for fun. Like I don't know how you would bring it to anything because it's such a weird deck. It's like playing the Eosmon, but even more memeable because if you lose with this, it's like getting decked. It's like basically playing yourself. Machine Dramon, I'm gonna give it a solid tier 2 because it does not do well against Quantumon, so it kind of dies to bloom. Then we have Digipolice. Digipolice, I'll put it like I don't know, maybe like top of tier 2, maybe. Yeah, because it's a really good deck, but even with the new support, it's kind of getting wrecked by these guys up here. Beals, I'm going to put it up here with Blue Flare because it's still a really busted deck when it goes off, so I'm going to leave it there. Bealstar, I'll give it like, honestly, I'll give it tier 1.5, like the bottom though, but it's still really good. Like, it has a lot of removal, it has a lot of ways to play guys for cheap. It counters Mirage and Numa in a lot of the tier 1 decks, but at the same time, it kind of struggles a bit because it needs on deletions, and almost everything in this format is all about bottom decking or DP reducing, so kind of sucks. Then we have Belphamon. I'm going to say... Honestly, not sure. This deck is really strong, but like without its engine, it can't really do much, so... Maybe next to Alter S, maybe? Then we have Ravemon. Yeah, no, it's a meme deck, so yeah. Same with Reaper. Reaper pops up a lot, but you know, it's not for fun. Like I've seen, there was a guy who literally brought this to Nats and actually did pretty decent with it. So I'm gonna give it the Rogue. Same with Dorbeatmon. Dorbeatmon is such a fun. Like I'm gonna put it like right here next to Gaomon on the top of Rogue, because every single time I've played my friend in the Discord, Tiger, oh my god, every time. Dorbic just goes off when you least expect it, and it just one-taps you. It's so cool. Like, I love this deck. Like, shout out to them for still playing this deck. It's so cool, and I honestly wish it keeps... I honestly wish it would get new support, because if it did, it would probably jump up to tier 1.5, honestly. Then we have Alphamon. Alphamon's decent, but, you know, you would honestly want to run Dorugamon, honestly. Oh wait, I actually don't have Darugama. Oh, actually no, wait, no, I do. Never mind, never mind. I thought I did have it for a second. Um, I'll put it like with Machine Dramon, Chaos Dramon, because they're both really good decks, but it's just the tier one decks just go way faster than you. Like you need to search a lot to set up, which kind of sucks. Jesmon's in the same boat. He does get Magna X as new support technically to make GX immune, but even then, your opponent just slaps down a Def X and you're screwed. All Force, I'm going to put it in tier 1.5 because surprisingly, this deck actually managed to top recently, and it's kind of crazy that this deck is still going since like BT11. So I'm going to give it that 1.5 status because it's a really cool deck, and I really love All Force. Like, he honestly deserves, he deserves way more support. He's really cool, and I really love him. So I'm going to put him at like bottom of tier 1.5 with Beelstar. Then we have Gallantmon. Gallantmon's also the same thing because Gallantmon just keeps going. It's been around for so long and it's only just recently started to top, which is really cool. And I'm glad for it because it really, really needs that support, and I love it. Then we have like Leopardmon. I'm gonna give it like tier 2. It's like it's a cool deck, but like it still needs some more stuff. Leviamon, I would say like top of tier 2 because it's still like because of all this tier 1 and 1.5, it kind of has a rough time this format, sadly. Dorugamon, like the new support and everything, it's decent, but I feel like the deck isn't really complete until we get the Def X stuff in was it EX6, I believe, or BT17 around that time. Once we get that support, this deck is going to pop off and it's going to become like tier 1. But for now, I feel like it's there with like Gallantmon in tier 1.5. It's finally got legs, so pretty decent. Crossheart, I'm going to put it right next to, Blue Flare because it basically does the same thing, but in a different way. It's more of a rush deck rather than like stunning, but it's still rare. It's like all these Digicross decks are still really strong. It's just people just don't want to play them anymore, which is really weird because they're still very strong. Then we have Anubis. At this point, it's for fun because of those hits. This deck is just basically dead, and it has a really rough time doing its thing, basically. But yeah, no, that's basically my tier list for this. I think I honestly forgot Diaboro. Shout out to my friend Ian who has been playing Diaboro since BT3. My bad. If I could, actually, hold on. Okay, so I went and basically made Diaboro Ace. So this is the only other deck I can think of that's in the format because of my locals. I'm honestly going to give it like a really good rogue spot because this deck is actually kind of insane when it pops off. So I'm going to put it like right here next to Dorbic. As I mentioned before, this is mainly because of a friend at locals who still is repping this deck towards, since BT3. This deck has slowly gotten more support, and we will be getting new support, which will boost it up to like 1.5 or tier 1. So this deck has good potential. So I'll give it that spot because it's really cool. Like, I really love this deck too. Like, I love the idea of like making tokens. Aside from that, I can't really think of any other decks. Like, this format is kind of weird because it's kind of shaping up differently than what, a lot of people were predicting, especially because we do have the, we have the hindsight of getting to look like 2 or 3 sets ahead. Like, currently, we're like, what, 2-3 sets behind. So we get to see what's doing well, and then we can, prepare for those. But at the same time, the TCG is kind of working out differently. Mirage is still top, which honestly I'm not surprised because there's still a lot of Mirage players out there. And then same with like Numa players like me. We've figured out ways to basically keep doing the same thing we're doing, and even Magna X can't stop us. And then Insectoids finally getting their support actually pushed their deck up literally to the top of tier 1, which is pretty crazy. And then Yellow Vaccine getting all the new tools is basically going to make the deck just broken in this format. And then all the Greymons in tier 1 are really strong, but the problem is that a lot of the stuff now is all about bottom decking, and they do a lot of bottom decking and source stripping at the same time. So War Greymon does have kind of an issue against Imperial, which kind of sucks. Same with Shine. If Shine loses its sources, it's kind of dead because it kind of relies on those to, put Marcuses and other stuff. Sure, it's really fast, but I've seen Imperial go from 0 to 60 faster than Shine, which is really crazy. You would think Shine of all decks would be able to keep up. It's insane that a deck can go even faster than that. So honestly, I would watch out for a lot of these decks in tier one because they're just way too strong this format. Um, the 1.5 stuff, it's basically just decks that have been there or are just now coming online, like the Mega Zoo, the Dart Masters Mega Zoo stuff, and the Sylphimons and all that. They're really strong, but they're just lacking that extra oomph, that extra power to kind of push it beyond. And then tier two is just like the decks that are just they're just doing their thing, and if you get caught off guard, you basically lose. But if not, you basically kind of counter them sometimes, which really or you basically just counter them by default, basically. Rogue at this point is just kind of up for grabs at this point because it's all of them have really weird niches, and if you get like basically if you're playing a deck that is in that niche that gets countered by it, you basically outright lose because some of these rogue decks just go hard, especially Diaboro and like um Dorbic, they just go off. And then there's decks like Galactamon that just kind of exist for the fun of it. Same with Rave. Like, I really wish Rave had more support, but it doesn't. So we can't really do anything about that. And then Anubis just getting neutered literally by the restricted list is, yeah, no, that deck just got hit hard. It feels like another, like, but to be fair, the deck was pretty broken and pretty dominant in the OCG, and even upon the first week of EX 5 releasing, this deck, along with Metal Guru, was just dominating the format. So I'm honestly kind of glad it got hit. It was too broken to basically leave at 4. But aside from that, yeah, no, that's basically what I think of BT16. As I mentioned before, this is my personal opinion, and my personal opinion is based off of just so far the first 2 weeks of BT16. So make of that what you would, but this is just what I think how it's gonna be. Like tier one is just gonna be the ones that everybody's gonna be playing, and then you'll have people playing the 1.5s and tier twos. But the rogues you'll see once in a while. Same with the for fun decks, or not even the for fun decks. You'll see the rogues once in a while. Or in my case, I'll see Diaboro a lot. But yeah, as usual, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys next time.